do a quick intro, and then
Okay.
let's just get started. So,
Sure.
my guest today on Half-Hearted is Matt Puzhitsky.
What's up?
So, welcome. Thanks for coming on. You are a Toronto-based stand-up comic and content creator. Is that fair?
Fair, yeah.
All right. So let's just dive in. So last night you were doing a podcast with our mutual friend Brett Goss.
Yeah, well, he did one with Key as I was coming in. He was just leaving because the early show was canceled, but they had a late show.
Okay, how was the late show? I was gonna come, but then I heard it was canceled, so I didn't show up.
The late show was great. He put
Yeah?
in there was like, I don't know, like 8 people.
Okay.
And but it was wild. The first guy that went up, James, he got into a little bit of a scuffle with an audience member in the front. They literally almost fought, which was insane.
Was this James Hammond?
Yes.
I love this.
I love him. He's a great guy, and he goes after the audience sometimes. But yeah, this guy and him just did not get along. They almost got into a fist fight.
About what?
I don't know. It was just the guy was weird. James was first on the lineup, so this was setting the tone for the whole show.
Amazing.
The guy just like got up and said something about him being funnier than James, and then James started going into him. Right? I don't know what. Well, okay. Keys, first of all, is a small room. It's conducive to that kind of. You feel like you're there with the audience. There's no like I feel like in a club setup, you kind of have the bright lights on you. There's a bit of a wall. You have a bit of protection. It's kind of like you're screaming at somebody outside of a car window.
Oh no! Like the thing about I love Keys because it's so unique.
Yeah.
As a space to do comedy.
Unique is definitely a word to
Oh, I mean it's
describe it.
I think like my favorite joke about Key is that I was the most surprised to find out that he wasn't on cocaine.
Yeah, he doesn't even drink. I've never seen him take a sip of alcohol.
I know
Just ginger
it's
ale.
but it's a, you know what, it's a fun room because you got to be on your toes. You can do your prepared material, but you almost are obliged to do crowd work. You got to get into the mix a little. So I find Keys, no matter what, it is what you make it. You can make it a really fun.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody last week there. I don't even know the guy. He's I think a comic from either another city or the States, but he came in and he was like, yeah, I don't know how you get better in this room. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? This room, first of all, the amount of stage time he gives me, nowhere else in Toronto can I just like call him up on Saturday and be like, hey, can I have 20 minutes? Like,
yeah.
And then I'm also on the wall, so I'm a certified legend. So.
That's right. Certified legends on the wall.
You and I both. So that gives you walk-in status.
That's
Where
right.
else do we have that? Nowhere.
Nowhere.
And also, I feel like it's such a tough room. You have to, like you're right. There's no one thing that works there. Sometimes it's crowd work. Sometimes it's material. Sometimes it's neither. And you have to, take the bullet. But I feel like if you can figure out a way to do well at Keys in those different situations and even eat shit a few times and learn how to deal with that, you can do well anywhere. As opposed to like if you go to Absolute, that room is amazing, but it's like it's probably the easiest room in Toronto, right?
Oh, I don't know. I've had some tough moments in there.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
maybe it's a bias I have, but
well, I mean, you're not wrong. Absolute is one of my favorite places. Absolute, ironic. Pardon the pun. Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of my favorite spots, and I think I've had some of the hardest, deepest, longest laughs to my jokes there.
Yeah.
But I've also had times when they've been a little tense.
Yeah.
So
I've only gone there I've only done 2 sets there. No, not even 2. I've gone there a bunch of times to watch. I've only done 1 set there. And every time I've been, it's just been a great show. So like even when like the shows I've been to, I think there's been 3 shows, one of which I did a set. No comic, in my opinion, did poorly at all. Like everybody just killed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I've been there. I've seen it be a little bit more varied. Absolute. I just found out I get to do Thursdays and Sundays now. I
Nice.
broke out of the Pro-Am night,
Good.
so I'm very stoked about that. It's the first club where I feel like I've been somewhat accepted.
Yeah, nice. And that's a great place to. I wish, because I live right on Yonge and Eglinton.
Yes.
So if I could do that, that'd be great. But
I lived there when
see.
I lived there when I first got married. I love that neighborhood.
it's very nice, but it's so expensive. I was looking into like for what I can get in downtown Austin for the amount of rent I'm paying. I can have like a fucking 5-bedroom mansion. It's insane. But
do you have a day job?
No, not at the moment. I'm saving up a little bit for an American visa, so I just actually started doing something part-time as like a marketing manager, like social media stuff for a company. But for the past since I graduated my master's, I've been doing comedy, just surviving off of social media,
Nice.
which is great. I'm like very lucky that I can do that.
So I think that's a good place to start is, so what was your game plan for getting into social media, and then how do you monetize it? Because I think that social media is, for better or for worse, the future for comedy, for independent creators, right?
For sure.
It's the place where you, as a unique individual, can build your own fan base. But it's a grind. So how did you get started, and then how did you monetize it?
It's actually an interesting story. So, like, it's weird when people ask me how long I've been doing comedy for. I say like kind of a year, because I've only been doing it like comedy seriously, like hitting open mics and then doing shows for a year, just over a year now. But in terms of when I did my first mic was like before COVID at some random open mic that wasn't even a comedy open mic.
Okay.
I was like one of two comedians that went up. There's guys that doing poetry, like singing, whatever, playing guitar. So I did that. My joke book, my first joke book that I have, I've been writing in it since I was like 8 years old.
Okay.
Right? Specifically for stand-up. Like I was cleaning out my office when I was moving into my fiance and I were moving into our new place, and I found a picture that I drew of myself when I was like in grade school. Must have been like something like 6, 8, of me like bombing on stage. I was like literally, I still remember the joke. It was like a guy walks into a bar, and then the next kind of comic book strip is like ouch, and then it's just me on stage saying that into a mic. And literally I drew like little crickets, like the cricket like noises.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
So I have been a huge fan of comedy since I can remember, right? And I've been writing material, and then I decided to finally try it out just before COVID, and then COVID happened, and I used all of that material I had to start doing social media, and that kind of started going well. Not even that well, like, so I've been doing comedy social media for, was it like almost like 5 years now, right? And then I used that material for social media, started doing well. And then once I was already kind of on the scene and people started to see my face around more, I already had that social media presence.
And how do you, so you walked into doing stand-up comedy already having some sort of a backing with social media. How do you translate a joke that you designed to be on stage? How do you do that on social media?
I don't do it on purpose. It's kind of like when I'm writing, I have, and I don't love talking about like, like the process or whatever, because realistically the way that I do it is just, I try to live my life and try to forget about it. And when something happens, I write it down and see where it goes. Right. Sometimes what I think is a bit, I'll say on stage a few times and it turns into a skit. Sometimes what I think is a great skit, I write it as a script and like I film it. I'm like, this would be way better as a bit. So there's no rhyme or reason to it.
So you just write the stuff and it because it's funny to you.
Yeah.
And then you'll try it in both avenues and you'll see where it goes.
I won't necessarily do one and the other. I'll just see where it goes, right? And then it inevitably ends up being one or the other or both sometimes.
And then at what point, how long had you been in? Because I think you're at close to 80K on Instagram. Are you on TikTok as well?
Yeah. I have more on TikTok. I'm like over 100K something like.
That's great.
20,
and how long had you been at it before it started to blow up?
TikTok started blowing up a little bit earlier, like during the pandemic. My Instagram, I still remember being like this time last year, I was like doing open mics at the lab, and I was at like this time last year I was at like 4,000 followers or something. Okay. So since then,
so in a year you went from 4,000 to
80K.
80. Yeah. Wow.
And so it's kind of exponential.
Yes.
And now, now once you build up an audience and stay consistent with it, they kind of trust you more. And I was talking to Jake Brennan yesterday. I had him on the podcast. Love the guy. He's he makes me laugh so much when
he sent me a message yesterday calling me a queer.
Yeah.
So I really, which I always appreciate.
Dude, funniest thing. We were driving from like a show to some get together, and he was driving. I was in the passenger seat, and we go onto this, like in Toronto, there's a bunch of one-way streets.
Yeah.
So he goes the wrong way on a one-way street, and some dude is going the right way, gets mad, opens the window. He's like, open the window. Jake opens the window. So he's like, just some dude that looks like a divorce lawyer, you know?
Yeah.
That's divorced himself. And he's like, hey, this is you're going the wrong way on the street. And Jake just looks at him straight in the eye, super serious, goes, it's okay, I'm gay, and keeps going. I like moments like that. Like he just like there's genuinely like when I'm with him, I'm just having such a good time. He makes me laugh like nobody else.
Well, and the best part about Jake is that he in no way, shape, or form looks gay.
No,
Like,
he has a mullet now.
He's like he's 6'6".
Yeah.
The thickest
300
dude,
pounds.
300 pounds, and with a mullet.
It's hilarious.
I said he looks like the human version of the Hog from Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Before he turned into a mutant.
We were. He looks like there's a mouse from Flushed Away that he looks exactly like that we were talking about yesterday.
Flushed Away.
Yeah, it's a cartoon. It's like a Disney thing. Mouse from Flushed Away.
Just a sec, he'll pull it up.
Yeah. There like it's all about this guy.
Oh yeah. That's
What's his
look
name?
it up. The mouse from
Sid.
Sid from Flushed Away.
Yeah.
That's who our friend Jake Brennan looks like.
Yeah.
So then because Brad Goss's whole philosophy is get eyes on you and then sell them something.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you monetize social media?
So the way that I do it is I have like Brad and I talked about it when we did our pod, and it was he has a bit of a different philosophy. I think when you're starting out, it's definitely all about quantity, because that's the only way you learn what works for you and how to make content is just by pumping it out no matter what. Don't even think about whether the idea is good or bad. Just shoot it, post it, and forget about it.
Yes.
But I feel like I'm in a spot now where I want to focus more on quality. Not to the point where like I was talking about Jake and I were talking about this yesterday. He feels like he is in a tendency where he makes very high quality long skits, and it takes him so much time, but the return on investment, he gets not so many views.
Yes.
So you have to find that right balance, but in the beginning, definitely quantity, and then I'm kind of focused more. I am actually a little self-conscious about how much I post. I don't want to post as much anymore and focus on the quality. But what we're talking about, so Brad, he has obviously his amazing book series, right? And he has his whole thing where he's like a little edgy and like you know, the hate drives, you know, sales, right?
Yes.
So, and I'm in a different boat where I'm also a little bit on the side, like the series that does well for me is this like Americans in Canada, Americans in Europe thing. Yeah. That's also kind of like playing with stereotypes and controversy, and you should see like the comments. People are just arguing in there. So, you know, we are in a world where the controversy does sell, right?
Well, it's not even necessarily controversial, but just having, I find the stuff that it's done well for me, which, you know, isn't a ton yet, but it's anything where you just have an opinion and your own take on something, and then, you know, decisive, right? You really believe this. And the few that for me, it's like I did a video where I said Oppenheimer sucks. Yeah. And I posted
is a hot take.
I posted that in the summer, and it's still getting like views and likes and comments about, you know, mostly negative comments saying that I'm an idiot because I didn't like, you know, I must not be smart if I didn't like Oppenheimer. Or like anything about Palestine, Israel, people are gonna chime in. It doesn't need to be a controversial take, but people just, they love their teams. But so I guess and in that sense you get people on both sides, on the Canada side and on the US side, commenting on what they think about it. So but then going back to the monetization, so how do you do?
So far my monetization has been, and again, like you'd think, right, like when I post these skits, my September was like ridiculous. I went to Europe, I posted like a bunch of these in a row, and my TikTok impressions in that 1 month, I had like 50 million impressions. Wow. Right? So and I gained like 50,000 followers. But so, and you'd think you'd get a little bit of money off of that kind of viewership, but you don't at all.
I've heard TikTok is really bad for monetization.
So Instagram's the same. They're trying to work on programs where they're going to give you, YouTube's the only one so far where you get ad revenue from actual views and you can make a living off of viewership. However, in my case, I'm slowly just starting to gain traction on YouTube. Like I'm just over 1,000 followers. Slowly my videos are getting like 10K, 20K, like 100K views. But so I'm working on that. However, for now, the only thing I do is brand partnerships.
Okay.
So I that 1 month was great. Like I did like a brand deal with Fido, and then I did like Felix Health, and they reach out to you, you work on it. And just a couple of weeks ago, I signed with an agency that's going to take care of that for me.
Oh,
so
wow.
They now pitch me to companies that are running campaigns, like
Cool.
whatever, like Tim's, Hyundai, whatever.
Yes.
Right? And they pitch me. They say, okay, this kind of his content works well for the message we're trying to get across here.
Yeah.
And based on your followers and your kind of the level of your social media page, how much interaction it's getting, you have a set price per post. And then there's like, I was very stingy with this, like, because, you know, when I was doing my master's, I had other priorities, but I often would decline sponsorships because I feel like in my position, I don't want to dilute my content with a bunch of brand deals.
Yes.
I get 10 emails a day from random companies that are offering me $10,000 to post about their random app on my TikTok or on my Instagram. But if I did that every single day, you know, I'd be making a lot of money, but for a month, and then everybody would unfollow me, right?
Yeah, once they realize that you're just hawking shit at them, they're not going to want it.
So my qualification for accepting a brand deal is to, first of all, it's a company that I personally identify with. Second of all, it's something, a product or a campaign that I have enough freedom with that I can do something funny. My goal is when people see my ads is they look at it and say, oh shit, I didn't know this was an ad. It's just a funny skit.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the only way I'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What level do people need to be at to be approached for sponsorships, do you think? Like what's the barrier to entry?
I think I started, first of all, it's not so much about it is a little bit about how many followers you have, but overall it's how much traction your videos are getting. So it'll be up and down, but like these people see you through social media. So if you're getting a lot of views, like these companies see you and they reach out to you. I would say like it started for me maybe at like 5. On TikTok it's a little more, maybe like you have to be a little over 10K, but on Instagram, like once you're at like 4 or 5, probably you'll get a few emails every few weeks.
Okay.
And then eventually it starts to go up to the point where right now, like I've had multiple management companies approach me, and I always said I was so kind of apprehensive about it because I have a problem with authority. That's why I'm doing this.
Well, and it's also these people, the only reason they're interested in you is because you offer value.
Yeah, that's
right?
The only reason.
And they want a piece of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And hopefully the ideal thing is that they get a piece of it while increasing it for you.
Yeah.
Because that's the risk.
Yeah.
Because I've heard now this is more on the comedian side rather than the content creator side, where it's, you know, in Canada, you don't necessarily like need it.
Yeah.
How old are you, by the way?
24.
God damn it. Just got to sit with that for a sec.
Yeah, I'll let you sit. We
thanks.
We can sit and think. It's good. I like to think before I.
Yeah, about how much earlier I'll die than you.
Hey, you never know. Life is a weird thing, you know? Like what in the grand scheme of things, if we look at how much time has passed before us and how much time
I know. It's all a blip.
It's all a blip, man.
And I got to be there like fully for the 90s and the 80s.
That's
like
really
I got
cool.
to be there for the cultural times that were great. And then
I feel like
like how old were you when 9/11 happened?
Well 2001, right?
Yeah.
So 1.
Yeah, like that.
I'm June 99, so I wasn't
wow.
even, I was just over 1
So,
month and a few 1 year and a few months.
No recollection whatsoever.
No.
That's like that's like a firm boundary of like when I know somebody's in a totally different generation than me. Like so you're a Gen Z, hard Gen Z.
Yeah.
And then because there are like I'm older millennial, but then there are like younger millennials, like the ones born in like 95, who for the older generation, the older millennials, like The Simpsons was like the big show. That was our show.
Yeah.
So your knowledge of The Simpsons really tells me how much I'm going to be able to relate to you.
Yeah, but The Simpsons is still going strong. Like Simpsons, Family Guy, South Park.
Yeah, but like The Simpsons, the golden era of The Simpsons was two things. One, it's like seasons 3 through 10 are like I think were the best ones, but it was also this part of our culture where every day after school you would go home and The Simpsons would be on at least one channel, sometimes three, all at once from like 3 to 6 p.m. You could watch The Simpsons all afternoon until your parents got home.
That's fair. I never had that. I was, when I was younger, I was more into Family Guy, more so even than South Park. South Park is still going strong for sure, though. That
South Park has not missed a beat.
No, and that the longevity of this show, I'm like, the writers, God bless them. They're true geniuses, because I'm looking at like the level of writing on that show, like the level of comedy. It's almost like how true it is to what's going on in society, how they're not well, at this point, they're kind of grandfathered in. Like I don't think they can.
I was going to say they have these advantages to them, which is one, they've been grandfathered in, right? Is that and Family Guy too, where they get, and Simpsons was offensive. Right? Like to go back to that, the Simpsons were at the time considered very edgy when they first came out, because The Simpsons was a response to like the family sitcom, right? Where like everybody got along. What was the like All in the Family, or the one that Michael J. Fox was in? Like all these 80s family sitcoms. The Simpsons was like the antithesis of that, where like the children talked back and got into trouble. The father was a drunk, right? And so that really shook things up, and then created the template for the South Parks and for the Family Guys that came after. But yeah, South Park got grandfathered in terms of being offensive. Yeah. And then their ability to create episodes quickly. Like apparently The Simpsons, like their episodes take a year.
Really?
Took a year for them to do.
Okay. So what do you mean their inability to create episodes quickly?
Well, no, South Park's ability to create episodes quickly, allows them to comment on culture in real time.
Yeah, because it's like a very rudimentary form of animation, right? Their animations are really basic, so I guess that speeds up the process. And again, like a sitcom you're looking at with live actors, you can just have them in the studio and have all the footage. But yeah, animation, that whole process is, I have no idea what goes into it, but I'm assuming it's not the easiest thing.
Well, I mean,
especially back then without all the modern tools.
Well, exactly. The Simpsons were manually created, like on paper.
Exactly. Isn't that insane?
Celluloid, and they did it the old, which is why it took so long. They didn't have computers to do it. And
that's crazy.
I think this South Park didn't use computers right away, but they have an easier template to do that.
Yeah. Even if they have to, like the characters are specifically created with like basic shapes to quickly whip out episodes, because the essence of that show is the writing, right? Is the jokes, the writing, the commentary. So it's beautiful. I love it. One of my favorite kind of like snippets of that show, I like just it actually. So, a great thing about social media now is you always see like South Park clips. I love it. Fucking when they were all like, a bunch of people died and they were all kind of like on Judgment Day, and the guy's like reading a paper. He's like, all right, Jews, hell, Christians, hell, Mormons, you got it right. Congrats.
Yeah, I love that. There's an old Rowan, Rowan Atkinson, the guy that plays Mr. Bean, and he used to do like sketches and stuff, and he has this one that he does where he plays the devil greeting people coming into hell. And he's just like, we want to send particular condolences to the Mormons, who we realize put in an awful lot of work.
Yeah. Dude, I fucking what was I thinking about? The South Park. Oh yeah, apparently I just found out that the South Park creators wrote the Book of Mormon.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Now I'm so interested in watching it, because I've always heard about it and seen ads for it, but I had no idea it was them. I thought it was just some. I had no opinion on it, but now I'm super super interested in watching it.
Yeah. Well, I think I've just from the religious point of view, I think Mormonism is so fascinating. It's such a crazy religion with a crazy history. I love learning about it.
Yeah, I have no like I mean, I'm Orthodox technically. I was baptized, and I went to a Catholic school, but like my family kind of we kind of go to church once every 3 years for Easter kind of thing.
Gotcha. Were you born in Canada? What is your background, by the way? Is it Russian or Ukrainian?
Russian.
Okay.
I have Ukrainian as well.
Oh, okay.
My parents came here from Latvia in the early 90s when the Soviet Union was crumbling and all of that was going to shit. But I was born here shortly after.
So Latvian Orthodox.
Russian Orthodox.
Latvian Orthodox, the one that George Costanza tried to convert into.
Yeah. So they don't like Russians anywhere in Latvia. We were Russians living in, my family was Russians living in Latvia.
Okay.
I don't have any Latvian like heritage really, other than my parents lived there.
Okay.
Like ethnically, my 23andMe would be like mostly Russian, a little bit of Ukrainian, a little bit of German, a little bit of Polish, that kind of thing. Yeah, I looked into it because Christina Puzhitsky and I were trying to figure out if we're related, and we're not at all.
No. Okay.
So.
Let's just talk about that. So how did you opened for Christina Puzhitsky, Tom Segura's wife, when she was here in September?
Toronto, in September.
And you got to host that show. How did that come about?
I'm a big fan of their podcast, Your Mom's House, and they have this thing where they were talking about going to Starbucks, and instead of telling people thank you, saying I love you. So I posted it. I did that at Starbucks. I just got a coffee and said I love you instead of thank you. Yeah. Posted it on my story, tagged Segura and YMH and Christina. Yeah. Tom reposted it on his story, and Christina must have seen it. Yeah. And seen that our last names are very similar. Okay. And she sent me a DM like, "Is this actually your last name? And like, are you actually a comic?" I'm like, yeah. And then we started talking. Okay. And then one thing led to another. We were like, oh, like shit, are we related or not? And then eventually she booked a show in Toronto. She's like, do you want to MC? I'm like, sure. She gave me 10 minutes off the top. So I did that, and it must have gone okay because I'm doing it again February 16th in Vancouver.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. That's great. Good for you, man.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
That's cool. What's she like?
She's awesome. Honestly, like obviously I was wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. I felt like I was a Make-A-Wish kid. She had no reason to trust me, but she did. Yeah. And, thankfully I handled it well, but she gave me so much good advice, and then we just had dinner after and the few drinks, and we talked with her opener and my fiance, and we were just like chatting it up, talking about Austin, because I'm going there in February with Kyle Lucy. We're going on the 1st. That'll be fun. And to this day, like she's just so helpful. If I have a she's super open. Like if I have a question, I'll shoot her a text. And I'm going to Austin, so she set me up with some spots there. And,
oh, nice.
Like she's just she's doing this all out of the kindness of her heart. Yeah. And that really showed me, because I'm sure, as you know, in the comedy scene, there are some people that aren't so nice. No. And she is without a doubt the most successful comedian that I have had the pleasure of meeting. Yeah. And that really shows me what mindset leads to success, essentially. Now, I'm sure it's easier to be that nice when you are as successful as Christina. Yes. However, I think there's a reason she is where she is, and it's not just there. If you're not a good person, once you get success, some people say, success money shows one's true colors, right? Yeah. I'm sure she got to where she is mostly because she's just a kind person, and
and worked really hard. And I heard she has a thing with Canada, because I heard a clip about how, I'm not sure what club it was, but it was a group of clubs in Canada where the owner said that I don't book female comics. And that she, what advice did she give you that you found was valuable?
That's a good question. I think the most valuable advice I took away from her is she said, stay in your own lane. Like, there will be other people that are doing things more successful, less successful, telling you suck, you're this. Blinders on, do your thing. She said that she actually used Rogan as an example for this. He said he was always the first to jump on the new thing. Yeah. He was the first one carrying around one of those huge ass cell phones when they came out, first to do social media, first to the podcasting thing. He's the godfather essentially of this whole medium that, pretty much because of him exploded to where it is today, right? Absolutely. He was always the first in the door. So she's like, don't be afraid to be the first, be the pioneer, be like Threads, whatever, whether it succeeds or not, get your ass on there and be the first to start posting, because you never know, right? You can have a million failures in this business. All it takes is one thing to succeed to get you to the top eventually. Yes. Right? So that was something that stuck with me. And just her worth ethic, right? Like she's out here. Her and Tom have one of the most successful podcast networks in the world. Yeah. And she's still out here writing material. She was like repping her new hour. Yeah. And also it was interesting because that was one of the first times that the first time that my parents actually saw me perform was here in Toronto in that theater. And my whole life I've been like playing sports and stuff, and I've had a good relationship with my parents, but they're like old style Soviet parents, you know. And that was after that show, that was probably the first time my dad ever told me he's proud of me, like directly.
Whoa, yeah.
So that was pretty cool, and you know, it's somewhat thanks to her, so that was a cool moment. But it shows you that like even with me, right, like it's been, you know, whatever you want to call it, like comedy for however long, posting content for this whole time, like eventually hopefully things will work out. And I have such a long way to go, but all these things come about in such random ways, and like when you have an opportunity, jump on it. I wasn't ready to do this. I was not ready. She's like, do you want to open for me? I'm like, fuck yeah. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh shit, what did I get?
No business. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but those are it's the opportunities that feel slightly ahead of where you really are. Yeah. That motivate you to be prepared for them.
Yeah, talk about slightly. The biggest venue I've done before that was probably Yuck Yucks.
Yeah, like on a Tuesday.
Amateur night. Yeah. In front of like I don't know, not even like 60 people or whatever. And then we're going to 1,000. And then now in Vancouver, it's going to be 1,300. Yeah.
Nice, man.
So it's
good
cool.
for you.
Yeah, it's exciting. And like, listen, honestly, what I can tell you actually from that experience was that her crowd was there to laugh. That was one of the easiest shows I've ever done.
Yes.
Because they are so amazing. Like, first of all, in front of a huge crowd, unless you like puke on stage or do like completely, like if you say a joke and 500 people don't laugh, the other 500 people are still laughing, and it's it's the biggest laugh you've ever heard.
Yeah.
Fucking, like she even told me, like what she told me actually was hilarious. Before I went on stage, she's like, don't bomb, and Russell Peters' agent will be watching you. That's what she told me, which was kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then shortly before, she's like, yeah, like if you bomb tonight, like you should rethink your career, because like my crowds are, because everybody's there because they love her. She has her own fan base. Yes. Which is interesting, because I think I asked her at some point, like, how do you keep developing as a comedian if you know people there love you, right? Yeah. And no matter what you say, they will enjoy it. Mm-hmm. That's why I think guys like Louis and Chappelle kind of do all these drop-in spots at like random clubs without announcing themselves. Yeah, well, right?
I mean, I saw a Mark Norman clip where he was talking about, one of the first times he hung out with Louis was saying like, I'm so jealous of where you are because you earned all those laughs. Yeah. You got all those laughs because like they were good jokes that you worked on, whereas somebody like a Seinfeld or a Louis C.K., they have the goodwill of the crowd already. Yes. Right? Like, I saw Segura, and it was like that. Yeah. It was, people are just, they love that guy.
I saw him in Niagara like a couple months ago when he was here at the OLG Theater. He was 5,000 packed. Yeah. And it was an unreal experience, but I don't know what the ideal number for comedy is. Like as a performer, I think like something like 300 is like that sweet spot, maybe even less, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're still intimate, right? Like somewhere between Keys and the Vogue Theater, it was probably good. But
I mean, it's always, I think we're at our level, it's always like any show can turn out to be a great show. Yeah. And then there can be shows that you think are going to be great that turn out to be dog shit.
For sure.
Right? Like you can do, you can do The Lab. Yeah. And it's, got 20 people in the crowd, and it's one of the best spots ever. And then I've done, the night that I did my Yucks showcase, the crowd was kind of Yeah. Like you can be at a real club and it not go great. So
yeah. That's actually interesting about The Lab. Like I had that experience literally 2 weeks ago where, first bucket pull, definitely not. Second bucket pull, no. Third bucket pull, I'm not in it. Okay, I might want to go home. And then I convince myself to stay. I'm already here. Fourth bucket pull, I'm not in it. I'm like, fuck it. Last one. Yeah. I get pulled second last. Nice. Okay. And it's one of the best sets I've ever had there. Yeah. And it was an early night, but like I was second last at The Lab. It was like 12:30, which is an early night for The Lab. But yeah. The energy in that crowd was unreal. It was one of the best sets I've had there. Being second last on this open mic show, that's just, there's something about that room that's special.
When it's one of my places I have to go to, like when I have a bit where I know I'm getting it to where I want it to be. Yeah. It's I have to mic it there. I have to take stuff there. Yeah, absolutely. So you've been at comedy a year steadily. So you had done an open mic before, gave time off the pandemic, finally jumped back in. Let's not talk about content creation. How have you found comedy in your first year?
It's been, it's been good. I think I'm good at, there's a whole scene in Toronto, and like there's a lot of like drama and politics, just as there is in any other industry. But I'm pretty good at kind of putting the blinders on. Like
I mean, you gotta. I say you just gotta find your team. Yeah. Right.
It's not even that. It's like definitely you have your team and the guys that you're close with, but at the end of the day, like I think that a lot of these very successful comedians, you hear Rogan saying all the time, like he just wants to give back. He has that kind of mentality. Like I don't think you hear many people other than Howard Stern and now I guess Cat Williams talking shit about Joe Rogan, right? Yeah. Because he's that. I've never met him, but like he must be just that kind of guy. Like it's not a coincidence that everybody is praising him, right? Yeah. But anyways, how have I found comedy? It's been great. I've loved it for my whole life, so I'm very proud of myself for committing to it, and I very much enjoy seeing the development night to night, getting better, and then like night to night sometimes you do well and then you bomb and then it's hard to see your progression. But thinking back to where I was a year ago to where in my first year now, I already did sold out theater, about to do another one. Just got booked at the Mothership, like which is also via Christina, but that's unreal. I had like this past week has been insane, just like finding out about like getting these opportunities, and I've really had to kind of calm myself down and stay in the present and focus on the process as opposed to like holy shit. I'm very thankful for all of that. And I definitely have imposter syndrome because of like I know social media helped me achieve these goals, but at the end of the day, like I did my job when Christina called on me, and I must have done well enough that she's having me again. So like maybe I am good at this thing. Like it's hard to, right?
Well, I mean, and at the end of the day, it's if she's having you back, then it's a good sign.
Yeah,
right?
No shit.
Right? So you can, it's just one foot in front of the other.
Yeah,
like you were saying.
And with all of this, like you were saying, actually, like you're happy that you grew up kind of 80s, 90s, because I really do feel especially with social media, there is so much shit going on. Like all these, like all the content, the comedy, the shows, the all these comments that are people are like, I can't look through every single one of my comments because like some of these videos, like people are DMing me death threats and people telling me that they love me, and that I make their day. So like on both sides, like you can't look in too much to the praise or to the negative. You just have to stay kind of centered. And I think it might be a little corny, but like one of my most helpful tools, other than my fiance and my family, have been reading philosophy, specifically like Stoic philosophy. Okay. Marcus Aurelius, like my Bible now, basically.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Well, it's the kind of book he wrote. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome in his time, and actually, funnily enough, he's not really remembered for that. He's mostly remembered for this book that he wrote called The Meditations, which was not supposed to be published. It's his essentially diary. Okay. And that's why it's called Meditations. The exact translation is he's like note to self. He's writing to his self. Okay. And the whole idea of meditations is that I would say there are three central themes. I would say it's judgment, and by judgment he says that life, what happens in your life has no effect on you. It's your judgments on the happenings in your life that determine how you go about in the world. He says, do not let yourself dyed the color purple. Purple at the time was like what emperors wore, like people, like rich people, affluent people that can only afford that. So he's like, your life is dyed by the color of your thoughts. So what goes on in here is how your life goes on, right? It's not necessarily the things that happen to you. There's judgment, there's nature. He talks a lot about the world, life, death. It's all a cycle. It's a natural flow of things, and that the difference between ourselves as social animals and just animals, chickens or whatever, is our ability to reason, right? To have reason. So basically, when something happens to you, you can ask yourself, will this is this temptation or whatever aligned with my animal nature or like my reason, right? And that's how you kind of make your decisions. And then community, because at the end of the day, we're social animals, and just like, you know, you can arguably say like plants live in order to feed living organisms, and some living organisms we use to feed ourselves. We, on the top of the food chain, so to speak, exist to help each other in a community, right? That is our purpose. I don't know, like it's just and like the main idea of stoicism in general is to kind of stay straight on your path and not let external things get to you. There's Marcus Aurelius, there's Epictetus. His whole thing is not getting attached to externals. Externals being money, objects. So like he even goes to say as far as to categorize his body, your own body and your family, as externals, because they are not yours. You didn't make them. The only thing
sounds very Gnostic.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. And it's the easiest way to kind of realize that life is like a big mess, and you have to accept that we're never going to make sense of it. We can just do our best right now.
So how have you translated those? Yeah, and sorry if it's only coming through one of your ears too.
It's okay.
There we go. It's bad. Oh.
I just use it like this. It's fine.
Yeah. We're good. How have you taken those philosophies and then translated them into something practical for yourself?
So when I read now, I don't read as much, which is another factor of the age we're in. I listen more so, but I still need something tangible. So I take a lot of notes, and Meditations specifically is one of these books that I come back to. I'm coming back to it for the second time this year. Overall, like maybe 3 times I've read it. I get something different out of it every single time, depending on the stage of my life that I am at, which I love. And it wasn't Aurelius, it was Epictetus himself that says, as a philosopher, what I'm doing right now, like professing these things to you, is not necessarily stoic. The true stoic way to be, your goal should be silence, and only speak when you're called upon. Make it brief, make it precise, but show people mostly through your actions, right? Okay. So the beautiful thing about Meditations is that it's a book, I feel like if you get the message, it's something that you will reread ever so often, because there is it's not a book with a specific structure, because like I said, it was Aurelius's diary, and he used it as a tool to learn this way of life himself. And as a part of that, repetition was huge for him. Every day he would write down something, in often very repetitive manner, because again, your life is dyed by the color of your thoughts, and the only way to change your thoughts is through repetition and through living these concepts, because it's very easy to read and forget. And what I was getting to was that Epictetus said that if you're reading many books, right, to them books were kind of like social media to us. Okay. Aurelius even says that I should stop reading. Reading is a waste of my time. I should live and apply myself instead of reading these pointless books that I'm going to forget about. Yeah. What Epictetus said was that it is better to be a master of a few very purposeful works than to read 1,000,000 books and forget about them. To truly master the concepts in a few meaningful books to yourself, depending on your station, whatever is important to you, right? That's up to you. But to truly understand the meaning behind a certain few, maybe philosophers or books, or, you know, whatever, arts, like it could be pursuits, right? Yeah. So essentially not to spread yourself thin. Yeah. So the way that I apply is that I read, I write, and I keep reading and writing. And I have, like, for every year that I read it, I have, like, right now in my notes, I have Meditations, January 2024. Yeah. I write it down, and sometimes I reread it. And when I reread the notes or the book, but I try to apply those little nuggets of wisdom. And eventually some of them kind of seep through and become more like mantras in your life. And that's it. And as your life goes on, they change, and it is what it is.
That's very cool. I like that. I like that a lot. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Where do I see myself in 5 years? I see myself living in Austin. Yeah. And doing comedy full time. Yeah. Touring, you know, hopefully, you know, make some more friends there. You know, I hear Joe Rogan has a pretty nice club.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
I'll check it out in a few weeks now. Actually, very excited for that. You know, just keep getting better at this awesome pursuit called comedy. That's you said, what have I taken away from a year in comedy? I've taken away that this is what I'm meant to be doing, and this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. That is my main takeaway. I love this, and there's nothing else I would rather do.
Yeah.
And that is, to me, I know a lot of friends and people that just finding that thing, you'd be lucky if once in your life you find that kind of calling.
Yeah.
And I feel so thankful that I found it. So where do I see myself in 5 years is just doing this still, hopefully at a higher level.
What do you think could derail you from that?
A lot of things, you know, like personal issues. In comedy, there's no secret. There's a lot of drugs and alcohol, right? Yeah. And I think the only way to avoid them is to kind of stay true to yourself and, you know, keep asking yourself what these kind of impulses would lead to, whether they are aligned with what my goal is, right? And try to steer myself clear of the bad things and the bad, you know, people influences. Yeah. By aligning myself with every decision that I make, you know, go down to the root. Is this helping myself, my family, and getting me? Is my decision today going to be beneficial to myself, me in 5 years, right? Yeah. That's an easy thing to say, but a harder thing to do in the moment, right? Because instant gratification isn't necessarily always, that's the way it works. That's how it gets you, right? Yeah. So
what have you found to be the hardest part of comedy?
The hardest part of comedy? Staying true to yourself, right? Like
what does that mean to you?
So the best piece of advice I've gotten in comedy, and the only piece of advice that I've really like from another comic that I've really listened to is you got to find a way to be yourself out there, right? Yeah. And that's kind of the easiest thing to do because, like, well, I am myself, right? Like but that's also the hardest thing to do, right? Because I saw your clip. You were talking to Matt and Harv about other people and playing to the comics as opposed to the crowd, right? At the end of the day, and I've had this conversation with other comics. I'll ask you a question. What do you think? As a comic, right? You say a joke that you love personally. Yeah. It tickles your soul in the best way. But the crowd, you know, whether it's, you know, an old crowd, a younger crowd, you really want to say that joke that night, but you know it won't work in front of this particular crowd. Yeah. Do you say it or do you pander to the crowd? And I personally don't think there's a right answer, but I want to hear yours.
I think it depends on how it's going. Okay. Because to me, jokes that don't work have no place in my set. Okay. But sometimes if the show's going bad, then you just do it to them. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, that makes sense. In a sense of like, you did that joke that you know is not going to work for your own personal enjoyment because you've got nothing to lose. Yeah. Right? Or it made the point that you don't give a shit about what these people think of you. So I think to me it's context dependent. Yeah.
I agree with you because I've been on both sides of the answer. I've said, no, you're a comedian, you have to do your job. And then, no, you're an artist, you have to focus on kind of what you're doing and hopefully the people will see eventually. And honestly, it changes week to week. So,
yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's like I've had bits. This is one thing about the lab. It's like you'll have a joke that did well there and then doesn't work anywhere else ever again. And and it's tough because it worked once, but you need to keep progressing. Like one of the things that I was very aware of early on was seeing people who would open mic the same jokes that didn't work. Yeah. Like you've done this now 5 times and it hasn't worked. So we
need to change it. Yeah.
If you're, you know, good at your craft, you would either change that joke or get rid of it.
Well, that's the whole point of doing it. That's kind of like practicing a joke in front of the mirror. If you're not taking the feedback, what's the difference between doing it in front of a crowd or just saying it to yourself in front of a mirror? Right?
Yeah, you're just hoping that it'll work again. But I think that's those people who do that, it worked once or twice, and so they're holding on to it. And I think it's a symptom of a comedian who hasn't fully embraced the idea of kill your darlings, right? Where you are so afraid of losing that 10 seconds in your set that joke gives you that you don't want to lose it because you're afraid you'll never write anything good ever again.
Okay.
Right? But if you are into your craft, then you are constantly writing. Like, I'm really big on the idea of the Atomic Habits story.
My fiance just started reading that.
Oh,
she's like, "Oh, you should read it." And I'm like, "Okay."
To me, the biggest takeaway from that book, I can give to you now.
Sure.
Which is that there's this story in the book, and this also goes back to what we were talking about in terms of quantity over quality. So that there was a photography professor, and he divided his class in half, and one half of the class, they were responsible for taking 100 photos. That's all they needed to do. It didn't matter how good or bad they were. They needed to take 100 and hand that in. And then the other half of the class would have to submit one photo. That's what they had to do.
Okay.
And then at the end of the year, the half of the class that took the 100 photos created the better photos.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because through quantity you develop quality.
Yeah.
Right? You take more chances, you will experiment more, and then you will get a feel for what works. And I think you can apply that principle to whatever, including joke writing. Yeah. And so or putting out social media content, and it's like through the quantity you will get to quality. Yeah. And so the way that I think about that in terms of comedy is write more jokes, and then the more jokes you write, the more better jokes you'll write.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if you just keep doing that, then you'll have a set of just better jokes.
Yeah. Right?
And then that exponential growth as well, right? Because then you'll get a feel for what makes a better joke.
Yeah.
And so I think that's all you really need from Atomic Habits, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
But I like that principle because I think in terms of, for me in social media, I think I'm still in the quantity phase. Like, I'm still putting out these clips of this podcast. I'm trying to figure out what sort of stuff works in terms of sketches and shorts and things like that. I feel like I'm still trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do on it. Like, I love doing this podcast. I love doing the podcast. I love sitting down with people and chatting about things that are meaningful. And I think like I'm building something solid, but I think I need a little bit more variety in terms of what I put out in terms of content. Yeah. And I'm still trying to figure that out.
Yeah. And I've found hosting my own podcast, which, by the way, we should do one anytime.
I'm in.
Yeah. I look at being a podcast host with the same kind of lens as comedy. Like you said, like it is truly a craft that you can get better at, right? Like,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I even from, you were I think my 16th guest.
We're exactly, like, I think Jake was my 15th podcast yesterday. Okay. So we're at like the exact same level basically.
Yeah. And I've just looking back at my previous episodes, I'm like, oh, I say like a lot. The way that you speak or stumble over your words when you're talking to other people. And it's made me be like, okay, I'm going to like sit for a beat and think about what this person said. And then think about what I'm going to say. And then you think like, oh, if I don't respond right away, then like you got to fill the silence.
No.
Just taking that time to just kind of like let it go.
Yeah. And like I learned to, I had the exact same epiphany very recently, and I fucking hate it. Like, I hated listening to myself. I just said it and it's going through my head. Right.
Yeah.
And then I listened to other podcasters that I consider, like, Joe Rogan, for example, is a genius. I don't care what anybody says, whether he's a good comic or not. I'm sure I've never seen him live. I've seen his Netflix special. He is a master conversationalist. There's no doubt about it. The way he can transition from Nobel Prize winning laureate to a comedian talking about fucking, his uncircumcised dick or whatever, like that, and have a conversation that is meaningful with both of those very opposing personalities. That is a skill that is, I think, becoming more and more rare, because I've actually thought about how cool it is that I regularly get to have conversations like this.
Yeah.
Our phones are away, just you and I, with people, because we have this podcast as an excuse. But think about with social media today, if you and I, we've talked a bunch before at mics, at shows, but how long are those conversations? Maximum like a couple of minutes, right? very kind of like we don't have time. We're doing something. We're both doing the show, worried about our own sets.
Yeah, you're in your head about doing what you got to do. They're not meaningful.
Yeah, and then we're like at a bar. I'll check my phone, whatever. But like how often do you really get to lock in with a person like this and have a legitimate conversation where it's just the two of you? I feel like this used to be much more common, right?
Oh, I mean, this is people. I had a guy ask me, "What do you miss most about the '90s?"
Yeah,
and I think it's the absence of the internet.
Yeah,
I think I mean, we had it, but it sucked. It wasn't the hub of culture.
Yeah,
right. And I think because of that, we all were in tune. We all had the same culture. We all saw the same shows. We all watched the same music videos. There wasn't that much to see, and so it bounded us together. But also, yeah, you spent more time with each other and going outside. Like, we're getting fatter because you're always entertained at all times.
Yeah.
So why would I go out and do something hard? Why would I go out and get, like, you have to like work hard to get 10,000 steps. Right? Like, to take time away from your job or whatever. Like, my life is very full.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yeah, and I feel like social media, just like anything in life, it's not black or white. There's many amazing things that it has allowed humanity to achieve, right? And there's also a lot of negative aspects to it. I think just like anything else, it's a balancing act. And, we have to learn how to control it as a society, but on the individual level, for us as creators, like, this is my job, and I'm so grateful for the opportunities. Without social media, I wouldn't have any of the opportunities that I've had in my career as a comedian so far. But I do feel that kind of that little, like, not little, the heavy kind of like that gray cloud over my head. Like, I have to be posting, I have to like all these comments and that, and it's just, that's fine. That is what it is, right? I have no judgments on it. See it as it's not going to go away. I just have to learn how to deal with it in the healthiest way that I can in my life. Yeah. And it's on everybody to do it by themselves. Not everybody can deal with it, unfortunately.
Well, there are times where it feels the obligation of your dream feels very heavy. Yeah. Right? Because you need to produce. Yeah. Right? You need to put out that content. You need to edit it. You need to write those jokes. You need to go perform them. You need to go open mic them. Yeah. Right? Like, and that's a big, it's a workload that you haven't even done yet and sometimes don't even know how to do. Yeah. Yeah. I'm still trying to process that obligation of your dream. What do you mean by that? If you want to be, well, let's take myself. If I want to be a headliner, if I want to be the world's greatest comic, or the best version of myself as a comic that I can possibly be, I need to write 45 minutes. Yeah. Right? I need to write 45 minutes that has 6 to 9 laughs per minute. Okay. Right? And so it's like that's a lot of, and then you need to write all of it, and you need to open mic all of it, and you need to refine it. Yeah. And perform it often, so you know it like the back of your hand, right? So, or if you want to be a content creator, even you want to do a podcast, there's if you say I want to do a podcast, well, then you got to find guests. Yeah. Right? You need to get equipment and learn equipment and learn how to use it. And then you need to edit it, and then you need to put it out. Yeah. And then you need to figure out where to put it out, when to put it out. Right? There's all these things, all the things that you would like to achieve require action on your part to do. Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes it can seem too big. Yeah. I think that is big. And I was talking to James yesterday, and we were talking about how I've talked to some comics that hire, dudes from India to edit their content, but personally, I've found so much value in doing all of this myself and learning how to edit, how to use all this equipment, how to host a podcast, and all of these things that are ideally in 5 years, I want to be in a position where I have to, there's no option. I have to offload the stuff and hire people. Mm-hmm. But when that day comes, I have done all of this myself, and I will be a much better manager because I know what goes into it, and I'll be able to run a much tighter ship that way. And it also teaches you so many valuable skills, right? Like how to edit it, and just that mindset of being open to learning. Like, just like I walked in here and I'm like, oh, you're using OBS Studio. Cool. I do it this way. So we're achieving the same goal in 2 different ways, and we're just learning from each other. Yeah. Which is great. And just another interesting thing that I got from what you just said is when you said you want to be a headliner.
however, what would you say? How many laughs per?
Like I think a headliner typically has 6 to 9 laughs
Okay.
per minute.
Okay.
Or in 1 minute of you performing, 18 seconds of those 60 seconds are taken up by laughter.
Okay. I am, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but I am on the opposite side of, I don't think there should be comedy. To me, why I love it is because I don't think there should be any rules, right?
Oh, yeah.
When you're saying that, like, think about guys like Chappelle, right? He probably has one laugh every 5 minutes. Especially in his latest special, he ended his special.
I think for what you're saying, for a pro headliner, you're doing an hour.
Yeah.
You can have a dip or a couple dips in that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think people in our position, you're doing 7 minutes.
Yeah.
For me, if I'm doing 7 minutes, I'm going to be fucking hammering them.
I completely agree with you, because Chappelle, over his career, has learned the right to do that. And no matter what you say, that people trust him, that he will deliver a punchline or a message that is worthy of that setup. And we are in no position to do that, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't want to think necessarily that way, because like all the like the comedy books and the classes you can take, there's like there's a program at Humber. We know multiple great comics that have come out of that program, but man, I've been in academics my whole life.
Yeah.
In synthetic organic chemistry.
Yeah.
I've had enough books.
Yeah.
And this is what I love about this thing, is that there are so many. We sit down at an open mic, after an open mic at the lab. You have myself, we have you, we have Shanil, who's a lawyer.
Yeah.
We have Matt Baxter, who is a born again Christian that is
in recovery.
That he is like one of the funniest people you've ever met, and has like some of the craziest stories. This diversity of people who have different acts and come from completely different backgrounds, and we're all doing the same thing. This is what I love about comedy, and why it kind of, in my mind, as soon as I hear somebody trying to put a formula to it, I'm like, no way, because there's no way we're all doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, to me, it's more just like, what sort of metrics should I be aiming for?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, though, you say, like, I don't want to do that, but the podcast I did with Jerry Corley, he was just like, if you want to do America's Got Talent, they're counting.
Yeah.
They're counting those the laughs per minute.
But why would you want to do America's Got Talent?
Well, I'm just saying, well, the thing is, if you want to, I don't want to do America's Got Talent.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't think I would ever be the candidate for America or Canada's Got Talent. I don't have a sob story behind me or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think, I'm demographically not their person. However, but at clubs and things like that. And like I said, it's just a metric for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's, you don't want to put a cap on how many followers you have, but it is an indication of your success and progression.
Yeah. And
I think that as a comic, again, early on, you want as much laughter as you can possibly get. You want to ring it out. I want it wall to wall for the entire time that I'm on stage, because I'm only going to be, I'm lucky to do 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. Like you were saying earlier, we're lucky to be able to do 20 minutes at Keys.
Yeah.
So most of the time that we're doing sets, we're doing like 7 to 10. And if I'm only doing 7 to 10, I want to be memorable. And the way you do that is by being the most funny.
No, I agree with that. It's just the whole idea of, I don't think, and again, everybody has their own way of approaching this thing. And that's where in my opinion, the beauty of this pursuit of comedy lies. The only rule that I have is that I want to be funny, and that's it. And like whether it's, I have jokes that have very tight and punchy that I would use for something like Kill Tony, for example. If I have a minute, I'm not doing a minute setup, you know? Or I'm not doing, I'll choose the right joke for the appropriate occasion. But it's just in the reason, I think, and I've never actually really sat down and thought about why I'm so opposed to that, where you'd think I would be, because I've studied quantum physics and like high level chemistry my whole life. I know all about equations and books. But the reason that I feel like I need to do this thing with no constraints is exactly that. As soon as you put a constraint on this thing, I feel like it's defying what, in my eyes, is the nature of the pursuit of comedy for me. for me, it's all about freedom of expression, getting out there and doing this weird thing that I don't even know like what to call it. It's like, yeah, it's like a performance art. It's you know, it's poetry.
Well, have you watched that Ralphie May at the Comedy Store YouTube video?
No.
It's like almost 2 hours, and he's just giving like advice to newer comics about what to do and what the industry's like.
Yeah.
Granted, I think it was filmed in like 2011, 2012.
Okay.
So it's his vision of what it takes doesn't include social media.
Okay.
So I would take some of it with a grain of salt.
Sure.
But one thing he said that I really loved was he said that, you know, comedy is an art form, which is, I think, is a given, but he said it's the hardest.
Okay.
And I was like, I think that's true. Because like, as much as you were talking about formulas, there is no there aren't joke formulas.
That's true. Yeah.
But like, you know, this is a misdirection. This is a 3-way build.
Yeah.
But like, you have to fill in the blanks for that.
Yeah.
Right? You need to populate the setup and create those punchlines. You know, for music, there are all the notes are already there. The instruments are already there. All the colors, the brushes, the paint, like everything for art, every other art is done. You can cover somebody else's song and you'll be praised for it.
Yeah.
Whereas in comedy, not only is there no true blueprint on how to do it, but there's no, you can't do what other people do. You can't, like, the cardinal sin is joke theft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So you have to do it all yourself.
Yeah,
There's
you
no
can't do a
road.
cover
There's no roadmap. But I think for me, my vision is if I want to be the funniest I can be, then the metric for that is laughs per minute. But I don't really do that in terms of counting the seconds.
Sure.
The way that I do that is in how I write.
Sure.
How I write it. Like if you've ever see how I write in bullets.
Okay.
And every bullet is what I can say within a breath.
Yeah.
And then I just make sure that I'm not going more than 2 bullets without a laugh.
Okay.
And then the way that you're going to get cascading laughter, like that rolling laughter, is by having like punchline tag.
Yeah.
Right. And so just in how I write is the way that I try to ensure that happens. Opposed to like going through and, okay, how many seconds did the laughter last? Because that's kind of also hard to predict.
Yeah. And I feel like I also write that way. I write in bullets as well. Premises, bullets, punchlines, tag. But I feel that my goal in probably more of the short term to get towards is to just be able to write a premise and have the confidence to work it out on stage.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't think I'm that kind of comic.
Yeah. I think that for me, that would be where I want to get to, given my vision for this whole thing for myself, is like I said, like I don't want to be constrained by that. And I do once.
But to you is like does that mean that you're just going to go on stage and be witty?
No,
like
it's
it's
explore
like
a
are you?
premise.
Because to me, it's like, well, exploring it. So this is where like we might get into it. It's going to get heated because I feel like that's what I've heard the phrase spray and pray.
Yeah.
You've got a concept, you're going up and you're hoping it's going to be funny. You're hoping that your brain will come up with something in the moment.
Yeah. And
that you'll be super funny, but I don't find that that's efficient.
Sure, yeah, and it might not be, but it's not efficient for you. It might be like, again, Joe Rogan's had these conversations with Chappelle and like CK and Bill Burr, I think, is another guy. Those are all guys that write like that. And that's what works for their brain. Yeah. And they found that they do their best work that way.
But I mean, like you're talking about guys who are now multiple decades into their career.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like Bill Burr, I've heard him also say that he said for the first 7 years he was set up punch.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's something that so you're saying you would like to get there.
I would like to. Yes.
And I think, I see what you're saying is you want to, what I think you're saying is that hopefully that over time that your writing gets so strong that your brain just knows what to do.
Yeah.
Like you're one of those guitar players where you start out, you learn all the scales and solo, and then you hear a song that you've never heard before and you can just play to it. Is that kind of...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think, I would love to be able to get there too. But I think that you could, to me, the times that a lot of jokes will come to me or jokes will come to me is when I'm envisioning myself performing it.
Okay.
Alone, I could be alone, and then the tags will come.
I've never really had that, like, never envisioned myself, but yeah, maybe that's like a good tool if you're more of a visual kind of brain person.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I guess that's the point. The point is, like I want to, and they, again, like you said, I preface the fact with I don't do that. I do the exact same thing you do because that's just the only way I can be funny at this point in time. Other than crowd work, which is a different thing. You like talk to people. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, which is its own thing. But like in terms of like actual just performing up there, doing jokes is like I have to write down the bullets because that's the level we're at, and it is what it is. And but yeah, like I think that one day if you're strong, and it's just through reps, you've been exposed to so many situations that, you know, our brain at the end of the day, I don't like formulas and stuff like that, but the only way that we can comprehend the world is through models, right? Everything, even the most complicated mathematical equations or physical equations that are based on gravity. Gravity is not a fact. It's a model of a physical phenomenon.
Yes.
You know, 9.8 meters per second, whatever. That is the best estimation we have, and our whole life, our whole society is built around models of how we interact with the world, right? Because of the eyes we have, the way our bodies function, our physiological kind of boundaries. So
yeah, we need representations.
Yeah.
Of the phenomena.
Exactly, right? So there is this whole idea of like what do you call it? Like deductive and inductive thinking, right? Like I always mix the two up, but I think like if we say like inductively because a specific fact is true, then we like deduct. I always mess the two up. What is it? Like big to small is inductive or deductive?
I don't know.
I think it would make more sense that if it's inductive, right? Because
Reductive?
this general rule is true, this fact must be true. Or the opposite, if this fact must be true, then like this is probably true, and then you make a general rule, right? The issue with that is we take something like if we can apply that to like social situations, like if I talk to someone and they are mean to me, maybe they had a bad day, and that small interaction is a small fraction of their day, and you deduce, so you deductively assume that as a rule they are a bad person.
Yes. Okay.
That is not good, obviously, because they might have just had the worst day at work, had a fight with their, you know, mom or something, and you just caught them at a bad time, but they might be the best person in the world, right? So, and we do the same thing. We applied that to things like airplanes, where we use that kind of logic to create these fucking flying metal machines that we say, yeah, according to this physics equation, this should work, right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty fucking cool that we're able to do this. But if you really think about it, the whole world is built on these flimsy ideas that we as I grow older, I realize that I know nothing. I think and I'm only 24. So
welcome to the club.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I don't think I've had as clear an opinion on the world than when I was like 18, 19. I fucking everything's black or white, everything. You know what is right, you know what is wrong. But as I grow older, I realize how much, like, if somebody tells me they haven't figured out, right away in my head I'm like, you are the biggest bullshitter I've ever heard, because nobody does. No, and that's the thing, like that's the scary part about adulthood. Yeah. Because I think you're 24, which is around the time that like that's when I got married and started working and you know, was exposed to the actual world. Yeah. Right. You're out of school, and it was like, oh, grown-ups can be idiots. Yeah. Yeah. Grown-ups, like I at 24 can be smarter than somebody who's 40. Yeah. Like I didn't think that was kind of like a mind-blowing discovery at the time. Yeah. What was have you had like a hardest moment in comedy so far? Have you had a moment where you're like, fuck this, like thought about quitting? No. I wouldn't say so. No. I love the confidence. No. I think I go through it all the time. I mean, yeah, I do go through it all the time, but I've never actually, I always say, fuck this. Yeah, yeah. Like, I'm going to kill myself, but never, I know it's just a coping mechanism for me at the end of the day. I'm pretty good with, like, sticking through things and, like, seeing them through. That's why I even finished my master's in the first place. I just started something, I wanted to finish it. Yeah. It's not like I'm using it at all in my current career path, but no. Well, I mean, I guess I feel like this has been a very like all over the place discussion, which I loved. We just just let it go. Yeah. What was your master's in? Synthetic organic chemistry. Why? Because I watched Breaking Bad in grade 11, probably.
Oh, is that the
If you trace it back, I knew I didn't want to go into like business or something like even.
What was your undergrad in?
My undergrad was in biological chemistry.
Okay.
So yeah, so it kind of stayed in the. So I was like, I'm more interested in science. Don't really love physics and math. I really like chemistry, so I'll go into like biochem. I like biology, chemistry. Maybe I want to go into med school, but I took the MCAT, but I ended up realizing that I am not the personality type for that.
Yeah.
And then my master's was essentially like socially acceptable stalling. I was like, I have no idea what I want to do with my undergrad. Let's fucking get a master's.
Yeah.
And I started to gain some traction in comedy. And like I said, like I have never been more sure of a decision in my life than with comedy. And albeit like I have had an interesting upbringing, like with athletics. Like I was champion of America in judo when I was in like 2009, 10, 8, something, when I was young.
I have a yellow belt in karate.
Nice. Cool. No, that's good. I was talking to Jake yesterday about how I think that society would be a much better place if everybody trained some kind of martial art and got into, ideally in a controlled environment, in some kind of physical altercation. Because a big reason I think that I am very good with pressure, whether it's on stage or in I can think clearly in high pressure situations in general in life, is because I have so many times after judo, I fought Muay Thai, kickboxing. I have 3 kickboxing fights. I have had to train for a fight against another dude that if I mess up, he's knocking me in the face. I'm going to get seriously hurt. That kind of literal altercation. You can have, you know, like everything we go through in life is some kind of fight, is some kind of challenge, right? You can have like a screaming match with somebody, get a flat tire and be disappointed, but this primal fight against another person, once you have overcome that kind of adversity, I think you develop a kind of mental toughness that helps get you through so many challenges in life. I think it would make, but that's a different story. But so yeah, undergrad, and then I was thinking of going into consulting or whatever, because I realized there's no money in chemistry.
Unless you make math.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But I think if you trace it back all the way, why did I choose chemistry? It was because like I knew like business or like law or whatever wasn't for me. And I watched Breaking Bad in grade 11 year, and I really love science. And my chemistry teacher at the time, teachers are very important, like the way they influence kids. They are very underappreciated, but he was great. He was also into Breaking Bad, and we like talked about it. So I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'll do chemistry. Yeah. Probably if you trace it back, I got a master's because of Breaking Bad. Yeah. So which is funny enough, but yeah.
That's so funny. I was just like, this drug business is like a pretty good idea.
Yeah, it was cool to me.
How long? Do you know? I don't know how long we've been at it. I like to keep it at like an hour. Okay, we're over an hour. That's good. All right. I don't know if the. Okay, I have 2 directions before we close. Okay. I'm going to take advantage of having you in here. Okay. On the social media side, what would you recommend for me? Where do you think I'm fucking up? Where do you think I could be producing?
Let me think, because I don't love giving advice, because I am by no means a fucking sensei.
Well, right? I think for, if you've ever have you read any comedy books? No. Like I find I will listen to advice from everybody, and then you'll find a nugget that you can use in all of it. You might not be able to use it all. Yeah. But you'll find something that you can will be beneficial.
Like that nugget that you gave me, the 100 photos, like the golden thing there, which is, you're absolutely right, is like trial and error. Yes. That's how you learn. So I would say just keep fucking doing it. Yeah. Forget about what everybody else says. Or when I was starting out, people were like, I was posting like cringy skits, and people like, I had friends going like, what the fuck? I lost friends that were like, this guy's weird. Yeah. Just recently, I'm still losing friends to somebody I knew throughout my undergrad stopped talking to me because of this whole comedy thing. They're like, they just think I'm a little too out there now or whatever, but it is what it is. Right. And I remember like some of the people that were like either directly or indirectly kind of giving me that weird side eye are now like messaging me like, oh my God, like congrats on all the success. Like I can't wait to come out to a show. I'm like, all right, see you there. You know? So just keep doing it, man. It's forget about the noise. broken telephone. I'm telling you what Christina told me. Like, people will be more successful than you always, and people will be judging you always. Just stay in your lane. Try to get better at what you're doing. Keep doing the podcast. Keep figuring, like, you're doing the right things. You'll learn that, oh, this skit doesn't work. This style of editing doesn't work. You know, you'll go on stage and you'll realize this joke doesn't work. You'll realize that this style maybe of podcasting you don't like that you say like too much. Fix it. I don't know how, just figure it out. Right, that's it. Just keep doing it, and don't let other people, because I really like that clip that you had with Baxter, like, don't cater to the comics, because at the end of the day, right, like, did Harv say this to you? Like, what do you want to be? Do you want to be popular in Toronto? Or?
So the funny thing about that was that what made that statement even more impactful was I was having a hard time, and Harv said, do you want to be a comic, or do you want to win the Toronto Comedy Popularity Contest? And I was like, dude, I needed to hear that. He's just like, you know who told me that? I'm like, who? He's like, you.
Oh. Okay.
You told me that last year.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
I had my own advice thrown at me.
That is why you write that shit down and you keep going over it, right? Because see, that is a thought that you had and that you truly believe in, but because of
I got sidetracked, man. I was like, my December, and you know what? It's I don't know about you. I don't know about the people that, like, in your circles, but, like, I felt like December was heavy for a lot of people, not just myself, especially within comedy. That it felt like really tough. I took a lot of time off to kind of get recentered, and I got sick. We were going to do this last week, and I was super sick through all of Christmas.
Yeah, that might be like a mental thing, right?
But you know what though? I find whenever I get, like, really sick, it's like the perfect reset.
Yeah.
I take it and I run with it into the new year. So now I'm stoked for 2024, man.
Definitely something to that. And also, like, he mentions it a lot. Epictetus specifically is like, sometimes a break for your mind will give you, like, a freshness that you need. So taking a break, 100% necessary. But that's what I'm saying, right? Like, your life is dyed by the color of your thoughts. It's so, dude, like, the thing is, with success comes judgment and hatred and also a lot of love. Like I said, both sides.
Yes.
You're getting those things because you're doing something right.
Yes.
The worst thing, I talked about this with Brad. Like, what is the opposite of love?
Hate.
No, it's indifference.
Yes. Okay.
Because love and hate come from the same section in your brain or your heart, whatever you want to call it. It's an intense passion towards someone or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Fucking love that guy. I fucking hate that guy. Right? Very similar feelings if you really dig down. The true opposite of love, somebody that cares for you, is indifference, because you don't even care enough to hate them. You're like, whatever, he can die under a bridge tomorrow, won't make a difference to me. Yeah. So you can take that however you want, whether it's with your people in your life that you know are thinking about, that have like an interest, that you have a relationship with, or you can take it as people that are hating on you in the Toronto comedy community, or your followers, right? Yeah. Like, if they're interacting with you, if they have something to say, like Brad says it all the time, right? Like, hate is attention. It's still still the same currency.
Yeah, I mean, like a nasty comment takes more work than a like. Yeah, exactly. Right? It's more engagement than a like is.
They might not buy your stuff or whatever, but like other people, like, it's all, it's a crazy game we're playing, and like at the end of the day, attention is our currency, right? That's what's going to get you to the next level, which is it's good and bad in its own ways. We can get into this for a big thing, because it's like I love comedy, but like through reading all these books and stuff, I'm struggling with like the fickleness of attention, of like I just like, here, let me read you something just yesterday from the notes of this book. A couple of quotes here. Praise. One who cares too much about fame fails to realize that all those who remember him will soon be dead, and he too, but suppose immortality. Okay, so that's obvious. This one was better. Through praise, you are losing the beauty of nature. He talks about nature a lot, which does not depend on another's word. Everything that is in any way beautiful has its beauty in itself, inherent and self-sufficient. Praise is no part of it, right? So would a diamond be any less beautiful if nobody was there to say how beautiful it is? Would a bush, a piece of shit on the side of the road, it's all a part of nature, right? Focus on the inherent thing you're doing. You're trying to be funny.
Yes.
You're trying to understand society and bring joy to people.
Yeah. Well, and that reminds me of Rick Rubin on Huberman saying, like, when it comes to making art, you need to be making it for you first.
Right.
Right. Like, you need the jokes that always seem to do well are the ones where I laughed out loud when I wrote it.
Yeah.
Like when I thought of that concept and it made me laugh. Like, that's the stuff that always, and then when you bring that genuine enthusiasm and love for that thing that you created out to everybody else, it shows.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, and that's a very similar question to what I asked you, right? Like, when do you pander to the crowd, or do you stay true to yourself, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, at the end I don't think pandering works. Like, at the end of the day, pandering works. I think on the one hand, you're a comic, you want to be the funniest, and so you don't want to do a joke that doesn't work. But then there are contexts where you're not going to do great, or you're not the right person for that situation, in which case it's the way that not pandering. Trying to do a good job isn't pandering, because you want to be good for yourself.
Yeah. So there we go. That's a long. I didn't really give you any specific advice, but like I can't, man. It's you, right? At the end of the day, it's your thing.
Yeah.
I'm in no position to give you advice, because it wouldn't work if I told you, like, I think your videos should be a little shorter, and you should post them at 12 o'clock, and like, that's all bullshit. But
I would take, you know what, if I would try
here's some advice that I found. All that stuff, hashtags, when you post, all that stuff, bullshit. If the video is good, it will do well, period.
Gotcha. All right. That's good.
Don't worry about when you post it.
Yeah,
people will eventually see it, and if it's good, they will share it, and it'll gain traction. Don't worry about when, and don't worry too much about the hashtags or whatever. I still kind of I put hashtags there, but like, whatever.
I mean, I used to fill it with as many hashtags as I could fill in.
Yeah.
And then I do like 3 or 4.
Yeah. And even now, I think I might actually try, because I haven't really tried not doing hashtags. I might see
just to see how it goes.
Yeah, because the algorithm is so advanced now. It knows what you're talking about. It hears all the keywords. You don't need to do it yourself.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Matt, I'm very impressed with you, and I honestly, and I really look forward to like working with you and seeing where things go. I really appreciate you coming on, and I can't wait to be on your podcast sometime.
We'll do that like soon.
Yeah,
hopefully
love it.
Before I leave, I'm leaving February 1st, so have the rest of January. It's at I'm not going to tell you where I live, but let's how
about we arrange it when we're done. But I also want to let you go. Your fiance gave you shit when you got here. That was funny. And she had no problem giving you shit in front of me, so keep her. I loved it. I loved every second of it.
I love bringing her to shows, but the comics love her because she roasts me in front of everyone, anybody. And she'll like talk shit to she talked shit to Brovo the other day. It was the funniest thing. And the Brovo Donnie, he like was like being talked down by this like little Russian lady. Like, you fucking, oh my god, it's the best.
Oh man, I love it.
She's great. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for
everybody.
having me.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.
Peace.